For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lucy, although Dad would probably introduce me as daughter number 2, Lou, or if it was just me and him, Sweetie Poppet. Dad delivered me into this world. He would recall that often whilst holding my hand. He was very proud of it. Mum's labour was so fast that he would often say I came charging into the world so fast, and I haven't stopped since. Quite often if we went into a shop whilst on holiday, I was made to wait outside because I was like a bull in a china shop. He would regularly tell me to slow down, that I was talking too fast. Talking 10 to the dozen was what he would say, although he could quite regularly himself talk the hind legs off a donkey, as he would say. I'm speaking from a perspective of my childhood, which is obviously shared, my childhood shared with my siblings, Lorna, Jessica and Adam. And I just wanted to say a bit about our dad. If there was one thing that he wasn't, it was ordinary. Growing up, we thought every dad knew every bird call, every butterfly, every hill fort or footpath across the countryside, over the downs. Weekends often meant long walks across the Ridgeway, where Dad seemed to know every field, the name of every field, the name of every copse, every ancient site, and every story attached to them. And we thought every dad could turn a walk into an adventure, tell stories of Merlin and Wayland Smithy as though he'd been there himself. He'd play guitar, he'd sing songs at bedside, and somehow that would always make me feel completely safe. At the end of those days, often would come the call from Dad when he'd had enough of the rabble of the children, would be, "Come on girls, up the hill to Bedfordshire." This was obviously before Adam came along. And we'd all climb on top of his back, and he'd crawl up the stairs, little Jess hanging off of the back, holding onto a little beaker of tea. There'd be giggles and squeals as we went up the stairs, and then he would offload us, and we'd climb into bed. He'd tuck us in, and he would sing us songs, tell us stories, and that catalogue of songs that he gave to us every night, we have all carried on with us and sung with our own children. Just ask B and Zach if you would like to know. Looking back now, those moments were pure magic, and only as we got older did we realise how incredibly lucky we have been. Dad was endlessly curious. Whatever interested him, he threw himself into completely, whether that be walking, gardening, fishing, metal detecting, gold panning, history, local history, folklore, CB radio and writing. He didn't just have hobbies, he had passions, and you never quite knew what Dad would come home with. Sometimes it was a tiny fleck of gold he'd patiently panned for. Sometimes it was a Roman coin, or a buckle from an old shoe, or clay pipe, and even on one occasion a live lizard, I think, or newt, one of the two, which he pulled out of his pocket, which promptly disappeared up the chimney before we'd even had a chance to have a look at it. Dad loved his vegetables, his garden of all sorts of vegetables, and many of you will remember his little YouTube videos that he would make, the updates to his pilgrims, proudly reporting on the state of his broad beans or his purple sprouting broccoli. He was an old soul. He didn't need a weather forecast either. He could tell you what was happening with the weather just from looking at the world around him. looking at the seasons, looking at the countryside to tell the seasons, and he'd often tell you how mild the winter had been, dependent on how early his daffodils had raised their yellow heads. Normally proof of a very mild winter. I remember his roast dinners. They were legendary because he made the best bread sauce, and he passed that recipe on. I still use it to this day. If anyone would like it, I'm happy to pass it on. He had a fondness for extra strong mints. He took that up whilst trying to give up smoking, very successfully for quite a long time. Sadly, the smoking came back, and the extra strong mint stayed as well. Dad had love of language and words. He was a real wordsmith, and he created a bit of a language of his own. Growing up, everyone was Squire or John. If something was good, it was, sound as a pound, mate. And when anyone did anything for him, if he was thankful, he would shake their hand, nod his head, and say, "Much obliged." He had a knack of falling asleep halfway through country and western films, or even the Grand Prix. Yet somehow, if we snuck along and changed the channel, he would wake up and say, "I was watching that." Later in life, alongside fishing trips and further gold panning expeditions, Dad became a published author, something he was immensely proud of, as are all of we. His tales on Wayland's Smithy are lovely, and it's another example of his curiosity and his imagination. He never stopped learning, creating or sharing the things he loved with everyone around him, anyone who was willing to listen. Perhaps that's his greatest legacy. Because when we look at our own family, we can still see him everywhere. Within us and within his grandchildren, we see his love of music in Oakley. We see his creativity in Macy and Bee, and we see his fascination with science and nature in Lydia. We see his endlessly curiously questioning mind in Zach and Max. And then there's my brother Adam, the apple of Dad's eye and his much-awaited son and heir. Anyone who knew Dad only has to look at Adam to see him. He's the absolute image of Dad, not just in his looks, but in his mannerisms, his humour, his interests and hobbies, and even sometimes his temperament. And it's like Dad's never really left us. There is one final reminder that he'll always be with us. Dad showed us that life was meant to be explored and enjoyed, to ask questions, to notice the little things, to make friends wherever you go, young and old, and to never lose your sense of wonder. We all carry a little piece of him with us, and Dad will thank you for those adventures and the songs, the stories, all the laughter. We love you, we miss you, and wherever our own adventures take us, we will always be much obliged. Love you.
Hi everybody. I'm getting all emotional now. Right, I imagine there will be quite a few of you coming to celebrate the life of my brother, Christopher, or Kit as he was mostly known. And I've made a few notes, so excuse me if I just refer to my notes. If there's one thing we all know about Chris, is that he marched to the beat of his own drum, as I think I do. He didn't care about the social expectations and trends or what other people thought of him. He knew exactly who he was, and he lived his life with a rare stubborn authenticity that I think we all secretly admired. Chris was happiest when he was connected to the earth and the water. He was a gold panner, always searching for that hidden glint in the riverbed and possessing the kind of patience that most of us, can only dream of. He was a fisherman who found peace on the water and a gardener who understood the quiet magic of watching things grow. He didn't need the flashing lights of the modern world. He just needed outdoors, a good spot by the water, and the freedom to be himself. When he passed away this May, he left a void that cannot be filled, but he also left us with a powerful reminder that life is too short to spend it trying to please anyone or everyone else. Chris lived his life out loud exactly the way he wanted to. As we say goodbye to him today, on this 25th of July, I hope we can all take a little piece of his independent spirit with us. So with that all said, I just want him to rest in peace and to let you know you'll be deeply missed. And even though at various times he's told people to F off, which is his catchphrase really to everybody. But when he first started work, he worked for Harwell, and he cycled 20 miles a day. And he got 2 lots of radiation when he was working there in the laboratories, and he was scrubbed from head to toe, red raw, and sent home in overalls. And after the second time of getting the radiation, he decided to give that up. And but he was doing really well and getting really good marks, top marks in the laboratory exams and stuff. So goodness only knows where he would have headed if he'd followed that path. But then he ended up working at the same garage that our dad worked at in Shrivenham, which was really bizarre. And but yeah, so he did just follow his own path and just was his own person really. Didn't give a crap about much at all really, or so it seems. And we tend to forget about the fact that he actually did some nutrition stuff called green light nutrition, I think it was called, and looking at all the sugars that were in the plants and the veggies. And so whatever he did, he threw himself into, boots and all, the same as when he went to Spain and was going to make it big in Spain, and just bought up all the gear to set up tents and equipment so that the English people could come and camp out on his property in Spain that he'd bought. And but then again, he didn't check what the authorities would say about it. So basically all the tents and all the equipment he bought to set up a campground, basically he lost out on all that, and he couldn't even sell the equipment and what have you. So he had big dreams and big ideas, and yeah, maybe he did find that huge nugget of gold in the fact that he lived his life however he wanted to. And and he's left behind 4 beautiful children, intelligent, and myself, his sister, and lots of friends. And I know Mark wants to say something as well, so I was hoping I'd get through this without feeling emotional. It's a bit of a difficult thing. But anyway, I'll hand over to Mark, and so he can say a few words.
Thank you. Unfortunately I didn't get to meet Chris until just over 2 years ago, but I was involved in a few of the online conversations that the two of them used to have, and it would be quite a chuckle. And then we got to know those catchphrases. Quite often it involved someone going to another place for the purposes of having sex with themselves. So I learned a few new words, and overall, I mean, he seemed to be pretty much living it how he wanted to, and good on him. And as Yvonne said, he's left an amazing family, and I've had the pleasure of meeting most of you. It's been fantastic, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you again. But raise a glass for him, for us as well. and
Yes.
hope the day is just one huge celebration. Enjoy.
Yeah, he would enjoy that, just having a great time and having a laugh. And I've sent some funny stories through to Adam and Kimmy, you know, about various times being tied up in the woods so that Chris and Neil could go wandering off without me hanging around. And they didn't tie me up very hard, but it was enough so that I couldn't go following them. And just, you know, being sat by the river with rods so that I could go fishing. Just, you know, lots of fun things. And, yeah, we did lots of acrobatic things in Liverpool at Norma and Jack's. And we just had such a blast up there. And, you know, whatever the guys did, I was there right behind. And it was just he was just a fun person then, and life has a way of knocking us back a wee bit, and maybe that's what happened with my brother. And but he is very special to a number of people. A friend of mine, Colleen and Pyro, and obviously with Luke, very good friend. Luke has been to him, and he was really good at listening and offering advice. Anyway, Gordon's not here to actually say anything, but he said to pass on his best wishes to all, and I have put the offer out to all you girls and Adam. Obviously, it should include Kimmy. You know, any time that you want to come out and visit, I'll pay for your airfare to come, but the rest of the expense and everything will be on you. And there's plenty of rooms here to put you all up, and we'll pick you up from Auckland Airport. And so the offer's there, and Gordon would be only too happy to even put you up, I guess, as well. So yeah, it's really, this is all for the people that are left behind, that are hurting and feeling emotional for various other reasons. But anyway, that's it from us, and hopefully it's not too long a video for you. So all the best from us in New Zealand. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
I don't want a fucking video, I want
So I'm Leah, I'm Chris's half-sister. We share the same dad, in case anyone was wondering. So when I think of Chris, there are a few things that come to mind. I think the first thing that I've always was really impressed by was his encyclopedic knowledge of everything. He seemed to just have this sponge-like mind that would absorb knowledge and facts and, as he would often say, rubbish. But it was just immense. And my dad actually used to call him the Oracle, our dad. And he would often say, I've been speaking to the Oracle. And yeah, he was, to us, the Oracle. He just seemed to, just have this sponge-like mind. I've always been quite envious of that sponge-like mind, the way of absorbing stuff. He could read stuff and just sort of know it. I'd have to read it a few times for it to sink in. So that really stands out for me. The other thing that, again, instantly comes to mind when I'm thinking of him, I can hear it. I can hear his voice. He had the most amazing voice. And I would often say to him, you should be on the radio. You've got a radio voice. And, just hearing him and our dad chatting away, because, over towards a good few years, him and our dad, Freudian slip, would talk every day. And, to hear them both, they both had good voices, but Chris had a particularly like a brilliant voice. I think really distinctive, really like you would just know it was him. So if had he gone into radio, I think he would have been one of those voices that was instantly recognisable. So that really comes to mind for me. And again, just think about his knowledge. I've kind of an interesting sort of anecdote is that for years I thought he'd done a history degree. Now I seem to remember being about 5, I think it was at our first house, and I was convinced he had told me that he'd done a history degree, and this had stuck in my mind always, and I just thought that was how it was. And then it was only a couple of years ago that we were talking on the phone, and we'd just talk about life and careers and jobs and stuff we've done. And I said, you know, did you not want to use your history degree? And he said, what history degree? I was like, I thought you'd done a history degree. He's like, no. Unless he had and he was teasing me. I don't know. But I said to him, I thought all these years you did a history degree and just decided not to use it. But he's like, no, where did you get that from? So I don't know whether I misheard him, whether I misunderstood him, whether he was just sort of joking, whether he was talking about maybe doing one, maybe he thought about doing one, or maybe he was saying, I'm glad I didn't do a history degree, you know. So that amuses me. Until only recently I thought he had done a history degree. Because I said to him, you know, why didn't you go into lecturing, teaching? And yeah, that would be why. And you know, something else that really comes to mind is just his love for his family. You know, I know, you know, over the years relationships have been tricky at times or complicated or a bit bumpy, but I really got the sense that in his heart he absolutely loved his children and his grandchildren. And I think of him as a real family man, and just really proud of all his children and grandchildren, and proud that they've, you know, gone on to live life and do things and have their own kids. And I think he was immensely proud of everyone, and just loved all that family time and seeing people and being part of people's lives. I think that was just really, really special for him. I think, you know, what I am missing and what I will miss is our shared connection. We don't speak that often, but, you know, we spoke more recently actually over, you know, since our dad died. You know, Chris would always message me or phone me when it was Dad's birthday, and also on the day that Dad had died. We always, you know, spoke, and we'd raise a glass or something. And just hearing Chris use some of the phrases my dad would say. Chris would often say, hey ho, and, you know, our dad would say that. And just the way he spoke, it had echoes of our dad. So I am already missing having that connection to our dad and having someone to share that with. And it was, you know, really nice that probably maybe the last 5 years, or maybe longer actually, maybe 10 years of our dad's life, that they would speak daily on the phone. And they, you know, they had common interests, they got on really well. You know, obviously, like, historically there'd been time apart, and, you know, life happening and in different directions and for different reasons. But, you know, they probably due to Mandy and maybe my mum trying to get them, you know, back in the same room, back talking again. And not that they weren't deliberately not talking, but, you know, life and people drift. And so I think they both really enjoyed each other's conversation, and they both had minds that absorbed things and were curious about the world and curious about different things. And yeah, Chris had his strong opinions on various aspects. I think were probably a bit similar to our dad. So again, they had common ground there. They could both, you know, put the world to rights, as they would say. And yeah, so having that connection for me has been lost now. So yeah, I do miss that. I am missing that, and I will continue to miss that. But yeah, he was a great character, and we last saw him and Caroline in July 24. We went over to Ross on Wye, and we'd been intending to go and visit them in their home for years, but we'd finally got round to it, and he was so chuffed. He took us to his favourite tea room, and we had lunch, and they took us to somewhere else. It was all very green and leafy, which is lovely. And we just had a really lovely day, and it was just really lovely to hang out with him. And it's like, oh, I wish we'd done this more, or that we lived closer, that we could do it more. Hearing the stories and hearing talk about fishing, and of course the gold panning was brilliant, metal detecting, I loved all that stuff. And his coin collecting. I still have a couple of coins that he gave me. I think it's a sad loss for everyone, and yeah, he is missed, and he will continue to be missed.
Hello pilgrims, back in the old potting shed again. Thought I'd do a bit of a catch up. I'm on the second phase of my sewing program, so I just flipped the cameras around, and why is it this bloody thing never wants to work when you want it to?
Hello, I'm Colleen from Paeroa, New Zealand. Kia ora. In memory of my dearest Kit. Kit, you were the best pen pal I could have ever had. I thank Yvonne, his sister, for introducing us. We have been friends for many, many years. I have so many memories of Kit, and do thank technology for being able to message, email, video call him. He used to chat to my mum when she was alive via some of our video chats sometimes. Kit even got to do a walk through my new house with me via video, which was cool. Kit was the most amazing, gracious, kindest best friend. He was always there for me and has been a great support to me over the years and a great mentor. He would even tell me when the bad weather, the storms, were coming our way here in New Zealand, as he used to watch our weather. I loved hearing about his gardening, gold panning, his fishing tales, Miss Maisie, his stories and his life in general. It has been a privilege to have been his friend, and it's been an absolute blessing to have had Kit in my life and as my best friend. Kit, you leave a huge void, as I'm sure he does in all your lives too. I will treasure all the beautiful memories of our friendship. When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Condolences to Kit's family, to Yvonne, Caroline and Miss Maisie, Luke, and all Kit's friends. As the saying goes here in New Zealand, when someone of significance passes, a mighty kauri has fallen. Happy fishing, kia kaha, be strong, stay strong. Love you so much, Kit. Fly high, one day we will meet. Ara hanoi, all my love, Coles, Buddy and Nugget. A piece of my heart is now a star in the sky. Thank you.
So, where do we start? Telling stories about Chris. Certainly, many of our memorable and happier occasions were holidays. And one of those specifically was when Chris and Mandy and Remy and I went to, where was it?
We went to Full Harbour.
Full Harbour, yes.
In a caravan.
Yes. And so we went on this holiday together. We drove, and because Chris wasn't driving at the time. And we had a happy time, although the weather wasn't always great. One night it was really wet and rainy, and the caravans were on embankments.
Yeah.
And I remember coming back from the pub, so that may give a clue. I think it was it me that slept?
Sorry, yeah, that was so funny. Yeah, he slipped up on his bum down the back. And he was so annoyed. But it was the funniest thing ever. Anyway, but it was the epic fishing trip that out into Poole Harbour. We hired this little boat.
Yeah, Chris, as you know, Chris was really into fishing. And so I thought I'd treat him to a day out in Poole Harbour. So there was this little boat shed near us where the campsite was. So I hired this, as a bit of a surprise, I hired this boat for a day. It's a small boat, little cabin on the front, small area at the back for us to do our fishing. And the four of us set sail early in the morning. We booked it for the whole day. And I paid my deposit and I paid for the actual thing. And off we went. And
hang on, first of all, Chris went to the beach to dig up ragworms. They are really long worms with like frilly bits all down the side, and they are the last thing myself or Mandy wanted to be anywhere near. So there's this tub of ragworms in the boat with us. We took a picnic and everything, by the way. And
it wasn't the ragworms.
Yeah, not with yeah. So off we went onto and anyway, part way out to sea, ragworms are sat on the roof of the boat. Gust of wind blew, and they just blew everywhere. And that was it for me and Mandy. We just stayed inside the cabin after that.
But Chris and I continued to fish for hours, it seemed, with no success. And in the end, the girls just got fed up and wanted to go back. So we thought we'd drop them back offshore, and they could go back to the caravan, while we continued somewhere else. So we headed back towards the harbour, and Chris, as he always did, had got very friendly with some of the locals, and one of those locals was taking a fishing boat trip out. And they were communicating as I was driving along, and the guy said, "Oh, there's some fish out just near the harbour wall." So anyway, all thoughts of dropping Remini and Mandy off were then forgotten as we headed towards the harbour wall to do some fishing. And anyway, Chris
said, right, I'm going to drop the anchor over. And I sat there and watched it. Well, I passed him the anchor, he put it over the side, and I watched him thread the rope through his hands. And then it wasn't attached to anything. And the anchor, the rope, everything went overboard.
Exactly. Now, I'd stopped the boat by this stage to do the fishing.
Yeah.
So Chris's instant reaction was, get your fishing rod out, let's try and catch the anchor. So, I mean, in the murky waters of Poole Harbour, we were fishing away with small hooks, trying to catch this anchor rope as it disappeared into the depths below. So, no success on that one, as you can imagine. So we thought, right, well, the girls still need to drop off. We'll go back to the harbour, to the boat shed, get another anchor. It can't be that difficult. So anyway, we come in aside, tell the boatyard, oh, by the way, we've lost the anchor, to which their language was somewhat colourful, yes. So the girls decided to depart at this point, and the boat owner took us back out with a grappling hook, with the hope of trying to catch the anchor with the grappling hook. So having thrown the grappling hook overboard to try and catch the anchor, it then got caught on some chains that were on the seabed. So he then had to cut the rope on the grappling hook. So we'd not only lost the anchor, but we'd lost the grappling hook as well. And so I said, but we still have a couple of hours to run. And he said, forget it. we're taking the boat back. And I then asked for my deposit back. And he wasn't very colourful about that one either. Or he was more than colourful about that one, let's say. Anyway, quite an experience. Well, Chris and I would laugh about for years afterwards.
Not successful.
Apart from that day, we had caught an eel.
Oh, yeah, he caught an eel. This wretched eel. And I don't know why I was the only one outside of the cabin when Chris caught the eel, but it wouldn't die. And he's, put your feet on the eel. And he's like, and it's the most slimiest, slithery thing ever. anyway, the darn thing was still writhing when we got back. I'm sure it was still writhing when he put it in the frying pan.
I think it was.
It just wouldn't. It was dead, very dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. That was
Anyway, we thought I was quite excited
Sorry about
about
that.
eating our catch, so to speak. That was our only success from the day, having lost hundreds of pounds of deposit and everything else. Well, the
Yeah.
equivalent of it, that.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so we tried the eel, and it wasn't very nice.
I didn't try it. No, you didn't
It was
try
bony
yes.
all the way
So
through.
it was, yeah.
A thick skin, not very nice at all.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was our
But
experience.
we talked about it often afterwards. Yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah, we had many great holidays with Chris and Mandy.
And then there was another occasion I remember when we stayed with Chris and Mandy when they lived in the Elms, which is opposite the village hall in Ashbury. And again, we didn't have any cars, and Chris said, "Oh, we can walk to Bishopston and go to the Royal Oak there, have a little drink. It's a nice summer evening." So off we trekked. It was about 2 or 3 miles, I think, and came out sunset. By the time we got to Idstone, it was dark, very dark, and I don't think we saw much in the way of traffic. But anyway, a car came towards us, so we had to get onto the bank. Next thing, we're all crawling out of the ditch at Idstone because there's a really steep dip there, and God, nobody could see it. And we all fell in the ditch. I mean, Des can't seem to remember it, but yeah. So
not unconscious.
So
You've got to fell
and so yeah, we had to. Oh, and then there was a time when we went. Chris decided we should go up near the Gallops at Lamb. We probably shouldn't be saying this on here. If this is in Ashbury.
It's a long time ago, I think we said.
Up on the Gallops, which is up near Lambourne, where some of the royal race horses are kept. And anyway, we weren't meant to be on the Gallops. We were trying to find a track. And this time, Des had a car by then, and Des was driving.
Morris Marina, for those who...
Yeah, purple. And Chris was giving him directions. Next thing, we're churning through this, I don't know what kind of,
literally the
soil.
track that he
Just
sent me down
disappeared.
had come to an end, and he just went straight into the Gallops.
And
So
straight
we
into
were on the sawdust stuff.
And we were just
And
literally
the only
churning
way
it
off then
all up.
was just to carry on. And so we literally went round the Gallops in a Morris Marina.
And churned up the Gallops.
And then made a quick exit.
With some of the country's most expensive horses gallop around on.
Sure.
And but we didn't get caught. So anyway, sorry about that if anybody...
Anyway, enough from us.
Yeah.
But anyway, lots of stories to tell about Chris.
Yes.
Thanks. Bless you. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, my name's Lorraine. I just wanted to share a little bit about Chris and, of course, Mandy. I met Chris and Mandy through Chris's mum, Millie, who was one of my best friends at Gorsa Baptist Church in Swindon. I felt like I knew Chris and Mandy before I ever met them because Millie used to tell me all about what was going on in their life and their kids and all those things. Anyway, one day Millie said that they were moving from Ashbury to Kingsdown and they didn't have anybody to help them move in. So I said I wouldn't mind helping them move in. So I was actually busy putting things away in their cupboard when they walked in and I first met them. I believe it was a short while after this when they mentioned they would be running a home group in their home, which I soon became a part of. I was at that time nursing in Lower Stratton, so it was a short ride on my moped to their house. Often I would pop in after work for a coffee with them. Oftentimes this would turn into a worship time, as Chris was a keen player of the guitar. We had some fun at these times. Adam was a little lad then. The girls were at school, but oftentimes were just coming home during the time I was there, so got to know them quite well. We continued meeting as a house group, and Ian and Sue Spencer from Australia launched the first COC here, in Swindon, in 1990. Actually, it started on Chris's birthday. Chris was heavily involved with guitar playing, leading Bible studies, and learning more from the Bible. We all learned so much in those days. The Holy Spirit was really moving, and we matured and grew and had great times of fellowship and fun together. We shared meals and times together over Christmas and New Year. Chris and the rest of us used to love playing party games and having fun. He had a great sense of humour, and I remember laughing together so many times, like when Bob was singing and a fly flew into his mouth, and his natural response was to swallow. Chris had watched it all in shadow on the overhead projector. We recalled that instance many times over the years. From the home group, the church was launched at Emlyn Square. It grew quickly, and we had a school in Westgate Place, then Headlands, and finally the town centre. We saw so much happen in those days, miracles and signs and wonders in those times. They are a happy and fulfilling part of my life. I got to know all of Chris's in-laws. Rem and Des remain friends to this day. We used to joke that Chris was now God panning rather than gold panning.